as the frenzy built up into the 90s, we hired more and more people and more developers, more salespeople, more marketing people, etc. And within 4 years, essentially, we had raised about $50 million in capital. We had hired 350 employees, and then we went public and raised another $25 million. Now here's the problem, and when we get into lessons learned, is that we had bankers around the table, very smart people dressed in really nice suits, banging the table telling us that we weren't losing enough money. And that we needed to spend more and hire more and do more and grow faster. And we listened to them. And we brought NBC in as an investor and proceeded to spend $1.5 million just on producing the TV commercials that we ran. And then we went on to spend $20 million on on running the TV commercials. Now, it was cool to be on Third Watch or whatever that show was back then. And you could see the immediate impact on the site, but it was not worth the $400,000 you just spent in the last 30 seconds, which is what it was. A lot of lessons to learn about how to scale a company, how to do it efficiently, where to spend your marketing dollars. And I think one of the most important lessons that now has carried on into Viewpoints is, even if you have capital in the bank, don't let it burn a hole in your pocket. Don't feel like you have to spend it right now. And know that the only people that really know how to spend it intelligently is you. It's not people who are looking from the outside in, thinking, hey, this is your moment in the sun, you should throw some money at the problem. Because if there's one overarching lesson, it's money doesn't necessarily solve your business problem. Sometimes it's time, sometimes it's creativity, sometimes it's having just the right exact employee rather than having 3 okay or good employees. There's lots of different things that happen there. So what happened is we built up. The year we went public, we had $40 million in sales, and we lost $40 million. Are you impressed? The next year, so you remember what happened in 2000, right? The bubble burst. Now, the way we had grown so quickly is that every crazy startup, including, remember the sock puppet, Pets.com? They were spending $300,000 with us several times a month to drop emails to our members. And literally writing $250,000 checks and calling us in frenzies at the end of a quarter saying, we got to spend $500,000 with you right now, what can you do? We did business with Overstock, we did business with eToys, all of those guys. And then of course overnight, they all ran out of money, and we had tens of millions of dollars in receivables that were never going to be paid. So we almost went bankrupt at the end of 2000. And we then had to go, of course, in that wonderful market, had to go out and try to raise more money after having just gone public 6 months earlier. Not a situation I would recommend. What happened, and this is for any entrepreneur here who gets into a situation where the company is scaling like crazy, you're raising bunches of money, and then some cataclysmic event happens in the economy or at your own company, what you might then encounter, which is exactly what we did. So I'll give you the numbers as best as I can remember them. We raised $25 million at about a $250 million valuation. So we essentially sold 10% of the company to raise $25 million. The next time we raised money in July, so 7 months later, we raised $15 million and sold 80% of the company. All right? The prices of our shares essentially went from $7 to 7 cents in about 12 months. So that time sucked. I got served at home, because we were not paying our bills, all kinds of great stuff. So what happened after that, though, is we just bared down, and we had to lay off 250 people. We had to focus on the things that were absolutely the most important, that would generate revenue, that would get us profitable. We had a great partner in the company that had bought in to us, who was a value investor, and they knew there was some value there, and they were able to take $75 million in investment that we had made and essentially buy it for $15 million at that point. And we then took the revenue of that company from $20 million in 2001 to $80 million in 2005, and turned profitable for the last several years, and took the company private at a valuation of $250 million. So there's this huge, crazy run up, huge drop off, and then a way to dig out of that. A real key lesson there learned, and I think anybody would tell you in a crisis what's a very good thing to do. You keep communicating with everybody involved in the crisis. People can handle change as long as they know what's going on and you're clear about it. And obviously keeping expenses in check. I had to negotiate our way out of TV contracts, out of leases, out of all kinds of things, and that one has stuck with me today. I developed all kinds of little rules of thumb about how to avoid taking on expense, because if there's one incredibly obvious thing that you could say, it's that it is a lot harder to get revenue than it is to keep expenses down. You've heard the term before, don't get out in front of your skis because you'll tip over. And I think it's the same exact thing. Developing, I developed a little rule, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, and at Viewpoints from this experience, that every time somebody came to me and wanted to spend money on a contract, on hiring an employee, on something, my typical response, having grown up in the sort of the go-go days of the internet, was, let's do it. It seems like a good idea, it'll help us grow faster, etc. But when you're in a smaller company and you don't want to have to raise more money and you're taking it a little more conservatively, the rule that I developed was, okay, good, we fully justified why we need this. Now, put it in the drawer for 2 months. And if in 2 months we come back to it and you still feel as passionately that you need it, we'll do it. And what has amazed me is in 8 or 9 out of 10 times, we're like, oh, why do we need that? We don't need that. And we've saved millions of dollars just by doing that. Another key issue here, there's lots of form of revenue that's easy money. The problem, though, with that easy money is it's often either low margin or it's not sustainable. So you basically find yourself running on a treadmill, and you're working really hard, but you're not building brick by brick for some greater future. And the problem is brick by brick is a lot harder than just some sort of overnight quick hit. I'm continually reminded by in our business now. Here's a great example. If you ever look at the lifetime value of the thing in your business that drives value, it might be customer, it might be something else. Look at, is that curve of that customer going up or is it going down? If it's going down, right, then you have to constantly acquire more of whatever that is. If it's going up, that means the more that you acquire, the more it adds. It's additive, right? It seems like a very simple concept. At Cool Savings, we would acquire a member, which is what drove our revenue. We ultimately ended up with 45 million registered members. The problem was they peaked in value, then they quickly declined, and then we had to get more. The difference at Viewpoints is you acquire a member and a review, and it grows and grows and grows over time. So it ends up as much more sustainable, essentially. So I tend to think a lot about operating leverage and a strategy for growth that is not just top line, not just break even, but what is, I love these businesses, and I've seen lots of them that have 50 and 70% margins. And on the web, those are, I'm not saying they're a dime a dozen, I'm not saying they're easy to get, but they are great businesses. And when you run a business where you have a 20% gross margin, it is much more difficult. You got a really big top line in order to get some real growth on the bottom line.